Okay, so the underside of the frame has now been painted. It's all set, ready to go. All I'm doing now is final touch-ups. Got a bit of snow. So basically, winter is finally set in out here in the great white Canadian tundra. So I probably, well, there's not a chance in hell now at this point that the body will ever be put back on the frame this year, which is fine anyway. I don't care. I want to make sure, I don't want to rush this because, you know, rushed work never looks good. So what I'm doing is that I couldn't really fan my my spray gun. I couldn't get a nice fine spray in this area here. So we got a little bit of areas where it's just, you know, a little shy on base coat. Same in here. This is kind of my screw up. I really didn't pay much attention there, and I was actually running shy on paint. I was running low on base, and supplier never brought any last week. So I decided to take a risk and try it and see how far I could get with it. And sure enough, I managed to paint the whole underside of the frame, but I mean, I just had enough. Like, I ran out quite severe. Like, it was, yeah, I wish I would have had another pint. Otherwise, I would have had enough. It would have been a nicer job, but anyway. It does look great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's covered in dust. See what I mean? Like, this is the Del Fleet. It's made by PPG. I'll show you the can. To areas like this, I'm going to touch up with just a foam brush, not like a fox hair brush or whatever you call them, like a regular paintbrush. I'm actually going to use a foam brush, and I have one here. So anyway, here's the PPG paint. This is the hardener and the reducer. I guess I got rid of the can, but what just one of these. It's just a foam brush. I mean, for the small little areas that I couldn't get into. I mean, I just, you know, it was only 99 cents. So I bought a couple of them just to kind of do the areas where I couldn't get in with the spray gun. What I could have done, I never thought of it at the time, is what I could have done is I could have used this small touch-up gun. And I didn't think anything of it. I could have used this, because the biggest problem is that I couldn't get the tip, well, actually the gun in there, because the canister itself would have been in the way. So I couldn't really fan a nice mist in certain areas, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I'll just clean it up, and I'll spray. I'll just spray some Del Fleet. I'll mix them up in a little paint container, and I'll just, you know, dab it on. That's kind of what I actually started doing on Friday. I started doing areas, like I think I got in here. I got in here, and it cured, you know, so it shouldn't be any problem with it doing it that way. As long as there's a little bit of hardener in it, it should be fine. Actually, you know what, it'd probably even cure on its own without the hardener, but I just wanted to put a little bit of hardener in it just in case. So I never thought to try that. I used this one for my primer. It has a 1.7 tip, I believe. 1.4 for this one. This is the one I used. You can smell the gun wash in here. And, you know, I kept my cleaning tips in here. Regulator, you know, 20 pounds. No more than 20 pounds. You don't need any more than 20 pounds with this kind of setup. Then, you know, that's all there was basically to it. And so it's been painted. It's been sitting in the garage the whole weekend with the furnace on and off. You know, it's been getting cold at nights now, but I wanted to make sure that it did set up properly. This Del Fleet paint takes a mighty long time to cure. It, you know, it could definitely take 6 hours, and it still wouldn't pass the fingernail scratch test yet. It's just one of those things, right? It takes a while for this stuff to cure. Not like the primer. The primer will flash in 15 minutes, and it's hard. It's cure. So this time I did wet on wet, and what that basically means is I primed it, I flashed it, I let the primer flash for probably about a half hour, and then I went over it wet with my base coat. The other side, when it was flipped over, what I had done was I primed it, sandblasted another section of it, primed it, sandblasted another section, and then primed it, And basically it took me about a month and a half to do all that. So after 24 hours, you have to scratch pad the primer. So I had to scratch pad the primer. But this time here, when I flipped it upside down, I just sandblasted the whole thing because the bottom half was actually pretty decent. It wasn't heavily corroded, which it wouldn't have been. The oil undercoating would have saved it. And what I've done then is I just sandblasted it all in one go, primed it here in the shop. I had a bare steel sitting in the garage here, and then I just wire wheeled everything, cleaned it up with wax and grease remover, and you know, went at it with the primer with the sealer, and wet on wet, and then, you know, I let it flash for a half hour, no more than a half hour, and went at it with the base coat. I mean, it looks beautiful. You know, it is dusty. It's been sitting in the garage here all weekend long. I think I actually did it on Thursday. Yeah, I did it Thursday. Today's Tuesday, so I mean, what I'm going to do now is I got to get the sand out of here. This sand is not good to be sitting in here. You know, it'll get wet, and, you know, it'll stay wet. Same in here. I got to try and get it out of there. You know, we got small little areas where there's sand, and it's very difficult to get out because, I mean, you got this whole rail here, and it's kind of just sitting in like a trap. So I got to try and figure out how I'm going to do that. Maybe if it's flipped over the other way, it might not be so bad. I can just kind of power wash it and rinse it off. I don't know. Rinse it out of there, but it's got to come out of there. So next stage will be I got to get upper control arms for it. Lower ones I'm going to sandblast and paint along with the rear axle. That'll be the next stage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this frame out of here. It can sit outside now that the paint is cured, and I'll put it outside somewhere where I'm not going to hit it with the plow truck. Speaking of which, I got a 4L80 with a blown reverse band, and it's not fixed yet, and winter's here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it outside and you know, clean it up, rinse it off, and then bring in the other pieces. I'm going to bring in the rear axle. I was hoping this beam here is actually pretty solid. You can see here, like that beam. Yeah, I mean, the axle itself is, you know, 100 pounds or more, so with the drums on it. So I'm going to take the drums off and maybe suspend it in the air in the rafter here. I don't know. I'll have to think about that, see how heavy it really is. And small intricate pieces like the lower and upper control arms for the rear axle, I'm going to sandblast that. I'm just going to do it in front of the doorway here. You know, it's getting cold outside, so the air line, I don't want it to freeze up. So I kind of have to get this done before, you know, it gets really cold. And we're already in the middle of November now, so I got to kind of get going with this. Because I want this put back together for Christmas. I want this to be a rolling chassis again. So I need a few parts. I need upper control arms. I need coil springs. You know, the two front ones at the front there, one of them was busted. The two at the back are okay, I guess, but I mean, they're not that expensive from the rock, so I might as well get new ones. But yeah, like, I mean, yeah, this frame is thin. I won't deny it. The frame is thin in certain areas, but you know, good luck finding a G-body frame. And if you do find a G-body frame that's in really good condition, chances are the car is in really good condition and you don't want to scrap it. So I have to take a kind of a loss here. It's like, yeah, the frame is thin in the crumple zone areas. I know that. I'm well aware of it. And I really don't care. I'm doing this as a project. I'm not doing this as a vehicle that, you know, it might not ever hit the light of the road. And I told a mechanic that was here, you know, sucking the Freon out of those two Chargers here the other day. You know, we loaded up his snap-on air conditioner sucker tool, whatever the hell you call it. And I mean, I told him the frame is thin. I mean, there's certain areas where I am blowing through, and I really don't care. You know, it's just, this is just a project. And if worse comes to worse, I'll take it to the racetrack and just drive it on the racetrack, and it'll just be a tow behind float buddy. You know, you load it on a float, you drive it with your truck out to the racetrack, drive around the lot for, you know, 10 laps or so, or until they tell you to get the off their property. And basically that's that. And if it doesn't pass the safety, the car already passed the safety once, but it's been off the road for 8 years. So anyway, I don't know what the law is with that in Ontario, but if it doesn't pass and if it won't work, well then hell with it. I'll just take it to the racetrack and I'll enjoy it out there. I mean, I don't really care. I couldn't find a G-body frame that's in any better shape. I mean, a lot of these frames were garbage anyway after 5 or 6 winters, so I kind of have to take my losses. And at least the frame isn't broke. There's no welds done to this. I mean, you know, the frame is in solid condition. It is good and solid. It's just, You know, there's some areas where I did blow holes through it, you know, but like here especially. But the opposite side is solid, so it's just, you know, it's solid all around. It's just there's certain areas where I blew through. So, and who cares? It might not even be that big of a deal as long as it's not broke. I might weld a plate in some of them yet. I know I have to weld some plates in these pockets. So, you know, typical. This happened with your Chevy truck frames too. This was notorious for this kind of crap. I'll have to put a plate here and then drill a hole and fix that up, or the body mount is just going to sink through the hole. Like, that's no good like that. That's no good like that at all. And I got 4 of those body mount pockets that ought to be touched up. So, so anyway, that's where I've got done with the frame anyway. I mean, it's been kind of just a weekend project. I did paint this on a Thursday because there was nothing really going on. It's hunting season, so I mean, I have no vehicles here to work on. I had this one here to do today, but I mean, it's done. So, but yeah, no, it's, as for an update on this, it is totally painted. I am just going to do some minor touch-ups. See, I pulled my masking tape back, but I didn't, I guess I forgot to fan in this general area. See, what we do is when you have to mask off the whole frame or a car, peel the masking tape back so you can fan a spray in behind there, and it'll, you know, this is what I did here. But it must have been perfectly straight here because now I got this edge. So I'll clean that up and I'll just dab some paint there. You'll never see it again anyway because the fender will cover that. But the rest of the frame turned out marvelous. It took about 2.5, 3 hours just to mask it off. So I think next time when I do another frame off like this, is I'm going to paint it all in one go. So when I go to do my plow truck, for example, I'm just going to sandblast it all. And if it flash rusts, it does. I mean, I don't care. And I'm just going to paint it all in one shot. I'm going to suspend the frame by 2 engine hoists, 1 on each end, my general thinking anyway. And I'm just going to spray it and be done with it. Rather than doing it this way, I mean, this took a lot of work. I had to get 3 guys just to help me flip this frame over. It's still heavy. The front end is heavy with that cross member. The back end, not so much. It with the rear axle out of there, it's not heavy at all. But the thing is I have shorter friends that just don't have the arm span to go from rail to rail. So I took this end because it was the heaviest, and I reached and grabbed 2 of those ends, or 2 of those rails, flipped it over, but mind you, it took 2 people at the back. And then another person to try and readjust the jack stands. And I put rags underneath them just to kind of keep it from getting scratched and marked up. I think I did accidentally mark up the frame a little bit on the opposite side, but that's okay. You know, little touch-ups, that's not a big deal. That can always be dealt with later, but so anyway, that's that for the frame project anyway. There's nothing much else to say about this. It is painted. I just have to try and get some touch-ups done to it, which I'll do this week. I mean, that'll only take me an hour. Certain areas like this where I couldn't get a mist in there. Well, actually, I forgot about it in all honesty. A lot of it's just dust. So I'll clean this up. I might even rinse it off first. Wax and grease, and I'll just touch it up. I mean, who cares? You won't see a lot of this. Now, I wanted to make sure that the bottom half was better than the top half, even though the whole thing looks fantastic in my opinion. I wanted to make sure the bottom half looked good because, I mean, you're going to see the bottom half, especially when you lift it on a hoist. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see all of this. You're going to see the cross member. These, I forgot, I didn't even bother painting those because those were black anyway. That's just grease and a little bit of overspray, so I'll just scratch pad that or fine steel wool. And that'll get rid of all that crap. And what I'll do is, yeah, that'll clean up nice. I don't need to paint that. And what I'll do is I'm going to get that nickel copper brake lines. I'm going to redo the brake lines and that stuff. I made that judgment call last night, actually. As a matter of fact, I was looking at it, and you know what? I think I'm going to do it in that stuff. Might as well. It's not that expensive either, so I'm just going to redo it all in that. And see how it goes. But yeah, this is what I've got done with it. It's pretty well done. I just, you know, now to put the engine in it, I want to get the engine back in it. I need the engine back in it. I need some weight in the front end to get those loaded coil springs back in there. And a coil compressor. I hate doing these. I really hate doing these. Especially on these cars. They're a pain to try and get in there. They really are. And it's dangerous. Some of those internal type coil compressors, they're no good. They're not strong enough to take the load of the spring. I've had coil compressors actually start buckling under the tension. I mean, it's not a safe job. I don't like doing it. I really don't like doing it. So anyway, like it works good for struts, but I mean for stuff like this, like those coil springs are loaded. And you got to compress them, I don't know, 5-6 inches to get those lower control arms in there. Yeah, like it's not a safe job. Anyway, so that's what I got done. It's all set to go. Just, you know, I'm going to do some touch-ups. The spray painting part is done. I am done with that. I don't have to do any more of it. All I have to do is get the unit flipped up back the way it was supposed to be, and start sandblasting the rear axle and paint that. But I mean, that's minor. That's only a 10-minute job once it's all blasted. But that's what I got done with the frame. So hopefully by Christmas it will be a rolling chassis again. I do need to get some parts. I need about $200 worth of parts, and then the body mount kit itself is about another $200, but I'm going to wait for springtime for that. I don't need them right now because the body's not going to be lowered for a while. I still have to I still have to do some work to the frame, inner rocker panel. I haven't done that yet, and I might not do it this year either, because weather's getting cold and it's not worth it. So I'll do it in the spring when the weather improves again, and you know, maybe during May long weekend put it back on the frame. See how it goes.